apparently there's one spot on the stage only where I'm not going to look blue the entire time I'm talking to you. So when I kind of fade in and out, just kind of go with me, because I'm going to walk and talk a bit. No matter how many times I see that, it just gives me a great kind of sense of fucking joy. And I was thinking about yesterday when I was thinking about how on earth to stand in front of the incredible women in this room. And I think it's quite momentous actually standing up here and seeing your faces and the incredible company we get to keep for the next hour and a half. And if I kind of think about it, it's more that sense of we are living in extraordinary times, right? This is an extraordinary moment to be a woman. And if we think about the progress that we've made in the last 100 years, 50 years, even in the last week, which has been probably one of the most interesting moments for me, it's quite remarkable when you think about how much better our lives have become for our daughters versus our grandmothers versus our mothers versus mine. And I feel like we've won just numerous levels of freedom to make the choices about how we want to live our lives. The women that we want to be, the girls that we want to be, our bodies, our education, our careers. So I think no matter how much we have this discussion, downplaying how far we've come, right, would also do a disservice to the incredible people who have fought their entire lives for that justice. And yet, we're all in the room because we know we still have a huge way to go. And that, for me, is what these moments are about. I was just talking to Beth at The Hollywood Reporter, and she was saying, we run around, right? We're so busy that these are some of the only moments we ever actually come back together again. And we think we're busy, and therefore we shouldn't be doing it. And yet, actually, these are the moments when those discussions continue and those partnerships form. So again, thanks to Reed Medium and Hollywood Reporter, but thanks to every single person in the room. And there's a theme that I've become very passionate about and also very fixated on, and that's this idea of possibility. So I have a 12-year-old daughter and a 7-year-old son, so I think I have to go with that optimistic frame of mind. And if you think about it, we're still so very boxed in, right, by our emotional, sexual, psychological stereotypes of how women, but also men, are meant to behave. All the shouldn'ts, the mustn'ts, the can'ts, the shoulds, and those boxes basically kind of limit the sense of the possibility of how we perceive ourselves. And then we think about the fact that this is a generation that refuses to be boxed in. We refuse to be bound by outmoded ideas, rigid notions of identity. They're all the things that basically stop us just from being the people that we want to be, living the lives we want to lead, being the women and the girls that we want to become. And as storytellers, I think the most profound thing is that we then get to repaint the picture of the possible because we are storytellers. We get to create the new stereotypes of women and bash the other ones down, and that's within our gift. And so for me, it's one of those areas where we really have an ability to actually change the social discourse. So, okay, let me just quickly check on here. It's my notes from yesterday. And the one thing I think that I love about most about where we're going as women is that it's no longer this neat little bow, right, about how we were meant to be. So you're going to see women who are definitely fun and fearless, but thank God also fucked up. You're going to see the ones who are ambitious and driven and bold, but also sometimes ache with vulnerability. We're going to celebrate the bravery and the courageous, but also the beauty, the grit, the grace, the people who break the rules and take the risks, but also the absolutely kind of the simplicity of the everyday woman, the ordinary woman who finds herself in extraordinary circumstances. And so when we get to change this discourse and paint these new pictures and rewrite the stories, I think we forget how often we therefore give other people the courage to rewrite their own story. And there's a very close friend of mine who said, if you can picture it, it can happen. And even if it doesn't quite happen in our own lifetimes, right, I have to believe that that is true. So if we get to repaint the picture and at least release the possible through doing that, we really get to have a societal change and an impact. So on that note, and this actually is the fucking fear of God of me, I'm now going to bring these two very wonderful women up, which basically means I can't control anything from this point onwards. So if there are two women who are bashing every stereotype that has been attributed to women, it is the truly remarkable Constance Zimmer and Shiri Appleby. Let's just chat, right? How do you feel as women and in the careers you've had, you are now being able to break down the stereotypes that all women have had, just from this?
Just from that? Well, I think it's been something that we've really talked about, is this idea that we are furthering the conversation about what women will look like in the workplace, and that women don't have to behave like men or be polite, that they can be driven and aggressive and willing to win at any cost. And I think that's something that people have really responded to in these two characters, because, I mean, it's something that we see, but we don't see it all that often. And so especially some of the lines that Constance sort of mutters about, people are always sort of amazed that women would want to speak like that.
But I think, too, in particular, what has become for, I think, us so fascinating about the show is that it's been the friendship between the two women that has really kind of come to the forefront of this storytelling. And I don't think we even realized it as much until we were presented with it, that friendships are mostly supposed to be when we are all like the best version of ourselves. And that's not real. The real friendships are the ones that are completely complicated, and you know all of that person's faults, and you still love them despite those faults. And so I think for these two characters, we're showing that women, you can be as vulnerable and as desperate, and you can do all of it, and your true friends are still going to love you for that. They're not going to judge you. And they don't judge each other. They know each other too well to kind of make themselves a stereotype, because they're not a stereotype. So they're breaking that mold, and I think that's been so fun to show women. Like, show everybody who you are, like to the depths of your soul, and you're still going to be loved. I really believe that. I mean,
but you're both naturally also quite badass in real life, right? Wow. So that kind of helps.
Did you just say a badult?
Yeah.
Right, that's amazing. That's a new word.
Women. I mean, I think it's been interesting also showing that, like, we're two women that support each other in our business and in our careers, and like that women don't have to take one another down. Like, Constance's success is my success, and I think that's something that's really important to keep pushing forward, that women don't feel the need for somebody else to fail in order to win.
And does it feel like a different time for you in terms of your careers, about how the roles that you're getting and the way that women are being written?
Well, it's interesting. I've always said that when I did a show in the late 90s on the WB, I did 65 episodes, and we had one female director. It was the last episode of the entire series. And this last episode of Unreal, our second season, we had 10 episodes, and 4 of them were directed by women. So it's really an interesting time. We have female showrunners, our rooms are run by women, and this isn't the first time I've been in the situation, so it's really interesting to watch women really stand up and do it all.
What about you?
What was the question?
How awesome are you?
I'm pretty amazing. I mean, I'm just saying, no. I mean, but again, I think that's a good point. We all should be so proud of our accomplishments and not ashamed of them. And as women, we feel like we can't stand up and say, yes, I did this, and I'm proud of it, and you can judge me all you want, but it's my accomplishment. I did it for myself. I didn't necessarily do it for you. Or, yeah, I mean, I won't say for a man, but, you know, it's all underwritten under there somewhere.
And have you, a quick one for you as well, have you been surprised by how much, I mean, the lines that you say in the show, women are repeating, and it's gone viral and crazy, and they're bad, right? My daughter had it the other day. I was like, oh, that's so bad, but it's so good. So how are you responding to that?
Well, I actually had a man come up to me, and he had written down a quote of Quinn's in his phone that he uses at work.
Which one is it?
I mean, I'm allowed to say this, right? Stop thinking with your clit. And I thought, and do your job. It was like, stop thinking with your clit and do your job. And I said, that's interesting. You've chosen that quote to use. Okay.
Guys, we have. That's it. I've got this red thing flashing at me saying time is up. These two have been the most incredible partners, but they're not just acting that when they're up on the screen, right? These women are driving change, and their entrepreneurialism and their fight and their feist, for me, is truly personally remarkable. So let's give them a round of applause, and we'll... Okay, and I have to get this right. Marisa, yeah, because I almost got it wrong. So Marisa's going to come up. We're going to continue with the panel. And thanks again, guys.
So you've all been introduced to Betsy and Euzhan, and Euzhan has a clip she would like to show us that actually grew out of her her movie A Dry White Season, as I'm sure you all know. This meeting with President Mandela came after that movie because he was so impressed with it and struck by it. So she's going to show a clip of that, and then Betsy will show a clip of people drinking enormous goblets of wine and killing each other. No, she really won't, but...
I didn't bring a clip. I apologize, you guys.
So can we roll the Mandela clip, please? Thank you. So I think that dovetails this interview you did 20 years ago.
Yes.
About women pushing the culture forward. And here we are having a moment in America. I don't know if you've been following our presidential election.
Yes.
Maybe you're trying not to. But we, I think, are on the brink of electing the first female president of the United States. I think I can say that without jinxing anything.
That's important. That'd be great. Yes, actually, you know.
Holy crap.
Yes.
But it's taken a long time.
Yes, because in fact, I did that movie in 1995 after Mandela saw A Dry White Season. He invited me to spend a week with him. So I made those footage and I never, showed the film. So this is an excerpt of the 30 minutes film with Mandela. And I decided to share, with you exceptionally, this little piece of about women, and I want to dedicate this to all the grandmothers, the mothers, and the little girls in the whole world, to be what they want to be, and why not, to run for, presidency, and why not, so.
And yet, Hollywood, the industry, why is it still so hard? Betsy.
That wasn't like a softball. Like I thought, why is it still so hard? Because I think change is hard, and I still think that there is a tendency for the majority of people who work to hire and work with people who remind them of themselves. And if you surround yourself with people who remind them of themselves, if it's still a business which is primarily continues to be dominated by men, then that tends to perpetuate, which is why I think it is really, really important. We were speaking about this actually earlier.
That's right.
And one of the, early on when we were developing Grey's Anatomy, we would look around and we were looking at the landscape of television, and Shonda and I would say to each other, why don't any shows look like us? Like, look at us. Look at the women that we know, look at the people that we know, look at the strong, different, diverse group of friends that we have. And the more that you actually create environments in which that happens, I think the more the doors open up. And I think it's getting better.
A bit better.
Better.
Slowly.
Slowly.
But it will happen.
But I think it's still hard, but I think you just keep pushing. And look, any kind of, when you bring diversity into your life and into your world, be it diversity of women, I think bottom line is you get a better product. So what I say to people is, okay, you may not understand this, but I swear your product will be better and you'll make more money. And then if you make more money, that usually speaks. So it's the best argument I usually can make.
When you, I wanted to ask you about your entree to into Hollywood with A Dry White Season. Robert Ebert wrote, American film critic, wrote, after seeing A Dry White Season, Euzhan Palcy strikes me as proof that great directors can come from anywhere, but they must know they are great directors and trust they are great. And I was struck by that after talking to you, because you told me that after you made Sugarcane Alley, Warner Brothers called you to come there and do a movie with them, and you didn't want to go.
No, actually, no. Because I knew how Hollywood was working, and I I felt like I wouldn't fit in, you know. So Lucy Fisher sent me something like 5 letters to invite me to come and work. And I said no. I couldn't say no. I don't want to work with you guys because, you know. But I said, well, I was busy. And finally, you know, it's Robert Redford, you know, who when he invited me to Sundance, I was one of the first French directors to go to Sundance. So, and back to the 1985, actually. And he asked me what next. We talked, and I showed him the letters. And he said, so? And I said, well, no, I don't think that, no, I won't go, you know, because I don't feel that it will work for me. And he said, no, you shouldn't do that. You are a strong woman. You know what you want. You know what you don't want. So you should go and try it. If you don't like it, you go back, you go home. And that's how, and he asked his office to arrange everything and put me in the plane and send me to Hollywood. And that's how I met with Lucy Fisher. And I had the Dry White Season book of Andre Brink in my luggage. And we talked about this, and we developed it. We didn't do it. Finally, I did it with MGM for other reasons that will be too long to explain. Anyway, yes.
But it is a truism, I think, and Betsy can speak to this, because you made independent films, cult hit films, before you went exclusively into television. Television is a more, maybe it seems more democratic, more egalitarian. You have to stick to a schedule. You have an X number of episodes that you have to produce. You can't spend all your time having long lunches and cogitating. So do you think television drew more women because of this efficiency? Was it immediately more democratic when you went from film to television?
I have to say, I think that I don't think I noticed what a boys' club is probably, the classic term, but how male-populated and dominated the movie business was until I started doing television. And also, just for the record, every movie that I made was a bomb. Okay, I was the typhoid Mary of movies. So it's very kind to say they're cult hits, but let's just super be honest, you guys. There's some 14-year-old girls someplace who are watching something, and I'm paying them.
High fidelity, 200 cigarettes?
200 cigarettes, finally, but dude.
High fidelity, come on.
Thank you. But I'm going to give you $20 later. But I do think that there was a real change when I moved into the television space, partially because the kinds of stories that we could tell are very, very different. There was room for more character-driven, more sort of character types, and also because in television, characters don't change. In movies, characters have to change very, very fast, very often, and especially American filmmaking. And I really, really loved the fact that in TV, people change sort of at the speed that we really change in life, which is sometimes not at all, and sometimes very, very, very gradually. And I remember walking into one of my first meetings, and it was the first time I'd walked into a room. We signed a deal with Touchstone Television, and I walked in, and there were 2 or 3 women in the room in a pitch meeting. And in movies, there were always women in the lower levels, but these women had become slightly more elevated. They still weren't totally at the top of the pile, but they were around. And there was something about the energy in television that was just very practical. As you said, you had a deadline, and there was a lot less drama about it, and you just had to make the product, and they were interested in something that could continue. And somebody once said to me, what's interesting about television is for many, many years, the reason why I think it was more friendly is because the women actually ruled the clicker. So a lot of the women at home are the people who determined for a large period of time who watched what, what their children watched. They dominated a lot of the marketplace. So I think there was an amazing moment for me when I realized, our type of storytelling actually has an audience. Like, they actually can respond, and it's this wonderful platform. It's like what the lovely ladies were saying earlier. You can you can have a world with twisty, strange, complicated people who have real friendships. And there, you can find women who will watch those shows and be enthusiastic and support those shows, which was wonderful. And it was nice not to have something bomb, you guys, just personally.
But Euzhan, you have the great distinction of being the person who coaxed Marlon Brando out of his self-imposed exile for A Dry White Season, which he received an Oscar nomination for. And I know that you have several men that you've called your godfathers, mentors, Robert Redford, Francois Truffaut, the great French New Wave director.
And Aimé Césaire, the very famous poet from Martinique. Yes.
And so how did you direct Marlon Brando? I think it would be interesting for everyone to hear what it was like to work with someone who was so intimidating to so many people.
Well, I think that I was very lucky to, when the project went from Warner Brothers to MGM, that was it was a miracle, by the way, because the studios, they don't do that, you know. They don't let their project go, but it meant to be so. So we arrived there. We went to MGM with Alain La Jr. Jay Cantor was vice president at MGM. And I was telling Paula Weinstein, my producer, I want Marlon Brando to come back. I want him to portray, you know, the anti-apartheid lawyer in the movie. And she said, oh, let me ask Jay, because Jay knows Marlon very well. They are like brothers. And I said, wow, that's formidable. And so Jay came in and Paula told him. So he said, okay, let me call the man. And he just called Marlon. And he said, okay, we have a young filmmaker. We are producing a movie about South Africa, blah, 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 blah. She wants you to come back. She wants to offer you a part in the movie. So Marlon had people, he was busy. So he said, okay, give me her phone number, I'll call her. And a week went through. I went back to France. Marlon didn't call. Then I come back, and the very day of my return, when I put my luggage down, so the phone rang, and it was Marlon Brando on the phone, speaking French with me, talking, you know, asking me when I dream, if I dream in color or in black and white. And, I mean, the whole Marlon thing, you know. Yes, and after maybe 45 minutes of talking in French, like with his very slow French, and jokes and stuff, so I said, yeah, but now what about, you know, the project? You know, I would like to, you know, to meet with you and give you the screenplay and blah, blah, blah. So he said, okay, and we met at Jay's house one night, and I told him, I can't talk about myself, I don't know how to do that, but my film will speak for me, you know, Sugarcane Alley, so you should see it, and you will know maybe a lot about me. And he said, okay. So we sat there, and we saw the film. And at the end, he had tears in his eyes, he was very moved by the film, and then, you know, I gave him the screenplay, and I said, you know, I'm open, we can rewrite the character. Thing I learned that I should never have said to him, by the way. Don't tell Marlon Brando that, you know. He can't rewrite because he does it anyway. So, and finally, you know, we talked about, we did a lot of work together, we discussed, and I told him something, and at the end, I told him, but you know, Marlon, I need to have an answer fast. He said, okay. And 3 days later, he called me and he said, I'm doing it. And I said, oh, say it again, because I couldn't believe it. He said, yes, I'm going to do it. I want to leave my footprint in the South African sand. That's exactly what he said that night. And I said, but there is one question that is very crucial, Marlon. You know that Hollywood does not put a lot of money in political films. And I should add, and directed by female, so they could, you know, you get less money than, anyway. So, so I know that your price is $5 million, and, you know, I don't have a big budget for the movie. He said he was furious. And he said, well, we talked about money. You think that I'm coming back after 10 years in a movie and it's a very important part. Yes, it's a cameo, it's a very important part. I'm doing that for the money. So he did the movie for free. And the only thing that he put in his deal is that he wanted the studio, after they recoup their money, to give money to 5 anti-apartheid associations. That's what he did.
It's a wonderful legacy for him to have.
Sorry?
It's a wonderful legacy for him
Yes.
to have. A very controversial figure, Marlon
Yes.
Brando. Yeah. And he wrote you a letter.
Oh, there's a letter. Everybody wants to see that letter.
He wrote her a letter
Yes.
before he died.
Yes. Well, I have to say that everything never been very beautiful because we had a great shooting, but we had a little fight when the movie came for the editing. I cut a
Why?
piece of his performance, and he didn't like it, so he was very upset. Anyway, but then I wrote him a letter, and then he wrote me 3 pages letter, a letter of 3 pages, handwriting.
And you brought it with you.
And he was very proud, very happy to share this experience with me. And he said that he was impressed by how much I was willing to die if I had to make that movie. And he signed with love and respect, Marlon. So, yeah.
Do you have any letters from any Hollywood icons? Betsy?
I'm just going to shut the hell up. Jesus, gosh, that's amazing. Whoa. I'm going to write myself a letter later and read it to myself. Marlon fucking Brando, man, that's... And I said, well, I mean, as a woman, and he respected you as a director and treated you like a human being, right?
Absolutely.
Amazing, you guys.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And respected the work you did,
Yeah.
and the research you did for Dry White Season, where you had to sneak into Soweto
Yes.
as masquerading as a music producer, yes?
Yes, so that's what I did, because I had made a lot of research, so I saw a lot of footage in order to write the screenplay. But I still needed to go to South Africa. But you wouldn't go like that, I couldn't. So it was very dangerous, we all know. So I had to pretend that I was a music producer and a singer as well, looking for some South African voices, the beautiful voices, okay? So, but prior to my trip, I met Mandela's friend and physician, the Dr. Ntato Motlana. I met him in Paris, and when I told him that I want to make a Dry White Season, he said, "What? You're kidding me? You are going to make that, but you are a woman, and they will let you do that." I said, "Yes, I will do it, So when he went back to South Africa, to make a long story short, he organized everything. And then I came I had my visa. I came as a singer and producer, and he sent a driver to the hotel, and we were talking in code, And when I went to Soweto, and I met a lot of people who have been tortured, and they told me their stories. And actually, I recorded them all of them, because people would never tell you about how they tortured them. They wouldn't talk about it. And Brink, when he wrote the book, he was white, and he was living in Joburg, and he had no access to Soweto. He wouldn't be able to go there and meet the people, and even though they would not tell him what they told me. Anyway, I left. I spent a Sunday with the people, and I left South Africa with a tape with all these testimonies, And I put the tape in my panties, yes, with some sparadrap. How you say? Okay, how you say that in sparadrap? I mean, tape. Yes, tape. Yes, I put it in my panties, and I walked. I was in great fear. I did that. And then I locked myself in a room and I started to write the screenplay. Yeah. But it was a very incredible experience. Yeah.
Wow.
And I have to say something very quickly. Sometimes some journalists, when they will see the film, one tell me, you remember we were talking about it earlier at MGM, I'm waiting for that journalist, a very important newspaper, and he came and he said, hello, and then he's going like this, but where is the director? Where is the director? I mean, you know. And then somebody said, but there she is. He said, oh, I'm sorry, I thought that he was a man. I said, a man, why? Well, when I saw the movie, you know, I thought that it was a man who directed the film. And I said, we do that. We know how to do it too, okay? You don't need to be a man to do action movies.
Action movies, right?
And talk about love.
You can't have blood if you're a lady.
Exactly.
No shooting of any action. Just lots of sitting
Yeah.
and drinking coffee, talking about our feelings.
Yeah.
As much has changed, you are still a partner in one of the only major production companies that is run by a black woman. So we all here in this room, there are lots of decision makers here, understand the importance of including diverse voices and different perspectives. Is this a dialogue where, are we talking to ourselves, or do you think things will start to accelerate and change more now? We seem to be at another one of these moments. Is this the tipping point moment?
You know, I don't think you ever know when a tipping point moment is till after the tipping point, to tell you the truth. And I also think, you know, the thing that irritates me most about periods of time like this is that it's considered to be sort of a fad. You know, it's like, ooh, this could be the year of the woman. Why is there a year, you guys? Like, what's the year of the woman thing? Like, what? Wow, it's happening right now. Well, it should be happening forever and always. So I think, you know, I think for us, the main thing is if you continue to work and support other women, and you continue to put your message out there, and you continue to create content which has thematic and emotional, universal resonance and appeal, I hope that by continuing sending that message out, that this isn't the year of the woman or the decade of the woman. We're women, we make product, we make it excitedly, enthusiastically, and more and more and more of us should have that ability to have a platform to speak our minds. So it's up to all of us to create environments in which we can do that. And everybody here has that ability and power, and I'm sure is doing that. So long-winded answer, but we can never take it for granted. We have to keep fighting and pushing.
Yes, that's right.
Don't you think?
I agree.
Okay.
I agree.
We agree.
Yes.
She knows Marlon Brando. But I'm fighting and pushing.
And our time is up, unfortunately, but I want to thank both of you. And if I could just end very quickly, if there's a situation or person that has inspired you, motivated you in your career.
Okay. Well, my grandmother, my hero, because she gave me, to start in life, she gave me 2 tools, 2 what I will call miraculous weapons to fight. She told me, first of all, never let anyone to take you off the path of your dream. Second thing, you have 2 minutes to complain about the world, about what doesn't work, blah, blah, blah. But you have 1 minute to take action. What are you going to do about it? And the third thing, I promised her before she died, that I will fight, I will to do everything as a filmmaker, a creator, that she couldn't do. You know, because she was a black woman in the Caribbean, she didn't go to school, but she had so much dream. And she told me so many great stories that I'm dying to tell. And they wouldn't let me tell sometimes in Hollywood. That's why I left Hollywood. But I'm ready now. I'm ready.
Excellent.
Okay.
You know, I think, similar to what you're saying, I think that to a large degree my mother and my father, but as a sort of a combo plate, because they each provided different things to me. But I think the amazing thing about my mother was, growing up, I was primarily raised at home when I was very little by my father, who stayed home. My mother worked to support us. I thought this was normal. So, and this was back in 1847, you guys. So it wasn't freaking normal.
You look great.
Thank you so much. I
For
haven't
a
had any work
200-year-old.
done, but it's probably the drinking. But I think like I grew up in this environment where I never thought anything was impossible. She never, ever gave me the impression that anything was impossible. And they always sort of told me I could do anything. And I had no idea that being a woman might be a detriment or a problem or an issue. Just that if I had something to say and I had the language and the ability to share it, that I was always encouraged to do it. So she had a really rough time in a lot of ways, and she didn't get to achieve a lot of the goals that she could have achieved if she'd been born in a different time. So I really have to give it to her, because it took a lot of balls during the period of time that she lived to be as strong and as opinionated, and I think be called a bitch sometimes behind her back, or difficult, or all the things that we...
But how do they call the men?
Exactly. But yeah, I would say my mother.
Thank you both very much.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
doing this.
Thank you.
So nice to finally meet you.